All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and me. Sad news from the music world is legendary novelty singer C.W. McCall has passed away at the age of 93 years old. C.W. McCall, that wasn't his real name. His real name was Bill Fries. And Bill was a creative director for a prominent advertising agency who scored an unlikely #1 single with his 1975 song Convoy about truckers during the CB craze. McCall died of cancer. He was 93 years old. And leave it to a novelty singer to die on April Fool's Day. Fry's death was confirmed by his friend Chip Davis, who founded the new age group Mannheim Steamroller. That's kind of a weird combination between, but hey, Chip Davis, pretty sharp guy. Fries had created the character of a truck driver, C.W. McCall, who was accompanied by his dog Sloan for a series of award-winning TV ads for Old Home Bread beginning in 1972 on behalf of the Omaha advertising firm of Bozell and Jacobs. The truck driver at the time was portrayed by an actor by the name of Jim Finlayson. In the ads, McCall's character frequented a truck stop, the Old Home Cafe, that Fries based on his own upbringing in Western Iowa. The commercials were said to be so successful that the Des Moines Register published the air times of the commercials in their daily television listings. As C.W. McCall, Fries released his debut album, 1975's Wolf Creek Pass, which reached #4 on the country chart thanks to 3 top 20 singles. Later that year, a follow-up album arrived, Black Bear Road. It included Convoy. The single, written by Fries and Chip Davis, was released on November 25th, 1975, and took off, ultimately reaching #1 on both the country and pop charts on January 24th, 1976. And if you remember, the CB craze was so big that everybody had to have a CB radio at the time. And I remember bugging my parents, hey, I need a CB base station, because I don't have a truck. So I'm this little kid and they're looking at me like I've got 2 heads. And my dad at one point said, you know what truckers talk about, right? I'm like, no. But he didn't follow up to tell me what truckers were talking about. I remember going over a friend's house and he had the whole setup and he was listening and we were listening like, okay, #1, all of this jargon. #2, a lot of inappropriate language going on. And that made me probably at the time want to get the CB radio even more. I remember going down to Radio Shack and I finally was allowed to get like this CB walkie-talkie, which was kind of lame. And it had only 3 or 4 channels or something like that on it. And you could program which channels to get, but there were certain channels that had all the good stuff on there. But then some truckers, they stayed on one band the entire time. So you might miss what was going on. Sure enough, even if you heard like static, you were really happy about it because it was almost like, hey, I've tapped into this stream of craziness out there. And we didn't live too far away from a major highway. So it was pretty active. It was pretty crazy stuff. And I wouldn't recommend getting your young kid a CB radio, especially with what people talk about now. Anyway, if you don't know the song tells the story of a fictional trucker who goes by the handle of Rubber Duck while traveling from west to east across the US. The narrator uses such CB jargon as 10-4 good buddy and other abbreviations that fellow truckers would recognize, such as I-10, referring to Interstate I-10, and Smokies, referring to the highway police. The song, by the way, got a little bit of a boost recently as the Freedom Convoy made its way to Washington, D.C., and obviously the Freedom Truckers up in Canada did their protest, and a lot of people were remembering Convoy, because there was, especially in the US in the lower 48, there was a big convoy that made its way at least around the Beltway close to DC, but they never went into DC, which is, you know, kind of disappointing. But in any event, it was still a bit of a catalyst, and I'm surprised that the song didn't do even more. But again, it's really a goofy song, and I'm saying that because it just is. But at the time, this country, we were okay with goofy. We were okay with novelty. Some people would say cheesy. Convoy ended up being a film. That's how much this this took off. Comedy, a road action comedy film based on the song, was released in 1978. It starred Chris Christopherson and Ali McGraw. McCall ended up touring the country with Fries singing the words of CW and the Fort Calhoun Nuclear Power Plant Boys playing the music. In reality, the boys were Chip Davis and a very eclectic mix of musicians. It's so weird to think that Chip Davis was in this band and then he went on to form Mannheim Steamroller. That's just so weird. 4 additional albums followed, although they were not as successful as the first 2. By 1980, Fries had retired from the music business. By then, he had moved to Colorado, where he served as the town mayor for 2 terms in the late 1980s. Fry was born on November 15th, 1928 in Audubon, Iowa. He was 93 years old when he passed away on April 1st. So leave it again to a novelty singer to pass away on April 1st, but there you go. It's a classic, whether you like it or not, whether you think novelty tunes are good or not. In the old days, we could appreciate it. Maybe we didn't listen to it every day. It's like Disco Duck. I remember when that came out. I think that went to #1 too. We didn't have a sophisticated sense of humor in those days. We had like a simple man's or simple person's understanding. And I think it was a much better country at that moment, because again, you may think, well, that's just stupid. It's not funny. And we've all kind of progressed and it just sounds dumb these days. Maybe so, but I still kind of long for those times. And I was a kid at the time, so I thought it was the coolest thing. In any event, that's the story on C.W. McCall, AKA Bill Fries. Actually, his real name is Bill Fries, and he was using the name C.W. McCall, which is much cooler, right? McCall sounds like you're making a McCall to somebody on the CB. So good for him. And who knew about those bread commercials? I didn't know about that. So that's kind of interesting information. All right, people, I'm done with this one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you soon.